Giants roaming North America? What? Sasquatch in our backyards. And our very own Dan Hohlfeld weighing in on the 9/11 conspiracy? All on this week's episode of Talk is Cheap. This week's episode of Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk and talk is cheap. We're going to talk tonight about some really good stuff, so stay tuned. My name is Peter Halbleib. To my left is
Dan Hohlfeld.
And hiding over here behind the sign,
Dusty Long.
All right, welcome. Well, we're going to dive right in tonight.
Just sit there with it.
I'm scared.
No, actually what we should be doing is we should be doing this, and then
they can
really confusing the hell out of people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
Anyway, I do declare.
Okay, so great. One of the topics that you guys have been kind of more Dan than Dustin have been saying, hey, when are you going to do this topic? When are you going to do this topic? Most folks know that I really get into the cryptozoology. I enjoy these potentially undiscovered creatures that are like right, under our noses, but we fail to acknowledge their existence. And of course, I think the biggest one that everybody talks about is Sasquatch. Okay, Bigfoot. And that's the North American version of basically an upright walking primate that is not a human.
Well, when everybody hears that you're coming on this show, that's what they want to hear about.
Yeah, well,
and we had yet to discuss it.
I know. I didn't really want to get into it too quick because I always had these great aspirations of sitting down and putting together a great talking points and putting together a good show for that, but that didn't happen. So we're just going to jump in head first here and go with it. We're going to start with the big one. The first thing what I wanted to kind of share with you guys, though, is that take a look at the screen here, and what do you think that is?
Ebola.
Bigfoot sightings.
Very good.
I was right.
Dustin, you could possibly take some context lessons from Dan. But yeah, this is the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, has put together this map on sightings across the country, and it kind of shows a decent dispersion of sightings through there. And I just wanted to kind of show that we do have, this isn't something that's just solely, found in the Pacific Northwest. As you can see here, basically from the Mississippi over to the east, there are a lot of sightings. Get down to Florida, you've heard of the Florida skunk ape. Mm-hmm. Okay? You've got Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, that's your standard Harry and the Henderson style Bigfoot. Now, you get down to Georgia and Alabama, they have what they call boogers and yahoos and stuff, which is a different version, and we don't need to get into that because...
so these are all different types of...
Allegedly, yeah. There are supposedly 4 types of these Sasquatch-type creatures in America, depending on who you talk to. Yeah, let's prove one, and then we'll worry about the other. Right?
I knew Washington was always the hot spot, but I didn't realize it was this much widespread like this.
Yep, absolutely. We've had sightings just down the road from us. There was a very... I shouldn't say famous, but a well-known one in the areas. The mailman that was delivering to Gay's Mills, I think it was late 70s, early 80s, had come across the Sasquatch carrying a dead goat across the road as he was going out on his early morning route. So, keep your eyes peeled, folks, because you never know when one of these are going to pop up. So I wanted to share this, just kind of show you that this isn't a phenomenon that's isolated just to one part of the country. Heck, it's not isolated to our country. This is happening in China, in Europe, in Russia, and in Australia. They have their version. So it's a great phenom to talk about. And when I approach this, I look at it, either there's an upright walking hominid out there that's still, there's pockets of it still going out today, or you've got a global delusional conspiracy to hoax this stuff. The Hobbit in Polynesian Hobbit that I think we may have talked about, at least maybe not on the show, but on the side we've talked about it. That was living alongside humans 10,000 years ago. And for us in the history of the planet to have Homo sapiens, humans, be the only upright walking hominid would be the exception to the rule. For the last several 100,000 years, there's been Homo sapiens living with Neanderthals, living with Homo florensis, and a whole slew of upright walking hominids have shared the earth since the existence of like upright walking hominids.
Yeah.
So again, I say this in a lot of the shows that we do. We have an arrogance, modern day arrogance to the humans, that we know everything. Oh, there's no other life out in the universe because we're the smartest, we're the only one. So of course we're going to be the only upright walking primate on the planet. That's just how our egos are telling us. Obviously, there's not a lot of these around, right? Because there would...
So they say.
Yeah, or so they say. Otherwise, I think you'd be getting a lot more sightings. We're not going to talk so much about the cover-ups tonight, and why the government would want to cover something like this up, and the motivations behind that. What we're going to talk about tonight is the film footage from 1967 from Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. It's the famous man in the monkey suit footage. You know, everybody, it's just a man in the monkey suit. That's been debunked. Well, newsflash, it has not been proven to be a hoax. The people that say it is, their stories are so messed up, they can't tell it the same way twice. They don't know what they're talking about. So this hopefully will be just one of many discussions that we have about this, because I am a little passionate about the subject.
Oh, yeah.
So what I want to start us out with right here is a YouTube video, and what it is, it's a zoomed and stabilized version of that original Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot footage. The music's a little cheesy, so please just bear with that. But I want us to take a look at this and think about costumes, 1967, and what the costumes were capable of. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about the guys who claim to have provided the costume and claim to have been in the costume after we look at this footage. So we want to look at things like, say, muscle movements and gaits, and let's really look to see if it's a person that would be walking in a suit.
Okay.
Mind you, it's October, it's a warm summer day, or fall day, I should say.
I'm definitely interested.
Yep, so this is the famous footage. Most of us have seen variations of this. The look back, the famous look back scene. And what people may not know, that this is actually a female Sasquatch. You'll see the breasts. You can see the breasts as she walks.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sure.
And that's a whole nother series of questions.
Yeah, if you were going to stage it with a rubber suit, why would you take the time to throw some breasts in?
Right?
Yeah, very true.
Slightly coned head, you've got big legs, arms out to the side. So that's just a small clip of the extended footage. You know, the original footage is Bob Gimlin taking the photo, or taking the video, and it's really shaky. And the story behind it is they came up, they had heard a report of Bigfoot sightings and Bigfoot tracks in the Bluff Creek area. Okay, and that's where the footage was taken, was Bluff Creek. And so Patterson, who had been involved, interested in the phenomena in these sightings prior to this, went up there with his buddy Bob and started following a set of tracks. And apparently there were multiple tracks, but then they kind of broke off, and he followed one. And this creature was in a treetop, a snag right next to a creek. Who knows what it was doing? You know, trying to get food, drinking water, but it was in this treetop snag in this creek. And when they approached, got up and calmly walked away, looking back at one time to check out the check out the people videotape, you know, coming after him.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, now the skeptics today, I mean, they're all over it. Well, you know, it's not acting like a wild animal would. Oh, what are the chances now? It's been 50 years and nobody's been able to get footage like this again. You know, there's some luck involved, and with it, obviously. But what really comes down to it, the skeptics are saying it was hoaxed, it was set up, it was a guy in a suit. Look at it, it's a guy in a suit. Why? Because, well, Sasquatch doesn't exist, so that's the only other option, right?
Yeah.
That it's got to be a guy in a suit. Kind of a interesting tidbit about this is that a gentleman by the name of Bob Harmonious had come forward later and said, I was the guy in the suit. And, oh, really? And this was after Patterson and Gimlin and a gentleman, a financier named Al DeAtley, started touring the country and going to all these movie theaters and showing this. Finally, Bob Harmonious raised his hand and said, hey, I can blow this wide open. I was the guy in the suit. So they started asking him questions about the day of it, what it was like, what was the suit made out of, how it was put on. Well, he claimed that the suit that he wore was made out of horsehair from a reddish horse. And it was put on in 2 pieces, and kind of like a waiter's, and then a top piece, and then the mask, the head was made out of a old-style football-like kind of helmet. And then when he was asked later, it was a 1-piece suit that zipped up in the back. And then when asked about extensions, oh yeah, he had hand extensions, and then no, they were just big gloves. And so his story changed over and over and over. Well, during this time...
Well, what does he have to gain out of this? It's just popularity?
Yeah, money. He wants to start getting money, either get paid off to keep his mouth shut, or now, hey, I'm going to tour the country. I'm the guy that was in the suit, and look at you idiots that believe this.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's money to be made in that, selling his story to newspapers, magazines, movie rights, all that fun stuff. And while this was going on, there was a gentleman named Philip Morris that made costumes that raised his hand and said, you know what? That's my suit. It's a modified Morris suit. I sold Roger Patterson a suit, and that's the suit you see in the video. Little different than this horsehair hide 2-piece thing that we just heard from Bob about, right?
Yeah.
And so after years passed and this discussion came up, Bob Harmonious and Philip Morris came together and put together a suit and said, here's the suit that was used in the video. And I just happen to have a picture of Bob and Philip and their suit. So here it is. Okay, now we can go back and forth and compare the video to this suit, but I don't necessarily think we need to at this point.
Well, it's got boobs.
Yes, it's got boobs. They're pretty low, and it's a nice red suit and a nice face mask there. But I think based on your comment, I'm going to go back. We're going to play that other one and see if I can pull it up here real quick. We're going to just take a quick little look here. So here's Bob Harmonious in his modified Philip Morris suit, and still from the look back. Okay, pretty close, except for the color, except for the bulk in the shoulders.
There's definitely more meat on the fake one.
Yep, the coned head. And
thigh.
What's really interesting is the difference between the distance from the elbow to the fingertips. Look at how far this falls.
Oh, yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
And that's where the biometrics come in, where a human being's body, like when you start running the statistics on it, 98% of all human beings have a certain ratio between upper forearm and then distance from their elbow. And that's one thing in all of these recreations they have not been able to reproduce, is where that angle is.
Okay.
And so we're looking here. You can see that we've got some kind of difference in a little reflection here. Might be indicative of how fur may wear as you're walking or something like that. Obviously here we've got a full suit that's got hair covering, and over on the right it looks a lot more shaggy, like something that might actually have been out in the wilderness a while. There's a lot of aspects of this PGF film that just simply cannot be explained today. Not to mention, this suit on the left was 25 years more advanced than this one on the right.
Yeah.
And supposedly we had a cowboy, Roger Patterson, that made this suit that to this day we still cannot debunk.
They are, to be absolutely clear, they're saying that's the exact same suit?
Yes, that was the suit modified that was used in the not the exact suit, but it was after the fact they put another suit together. It wasn't the one that was out of the.
What did they say happened to the original suit?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Come on, if you're gonna do that and then say I was the guy in the suit, what the fuck? I mean, did anyone say, hey, Where's the suit? What'd he say?
There are some unsubstantiated rumors that Al DeAtley's son, who is the original financier, has the suit in a display case on his property. Yet nobody's allowed to see it. He denies it, so you may as well.
Yeah.
You've got less photos of the suit than you do of Sasquatch.
So they went ahead and they wait 25 years, put together a suit, say this is the suit, the same thing,
Yep.
and it still doesn't look that great.
Yep, and let's go look at some old suits of the time. Oh, and there's Philip Morris on the left with his.
That must be a Wookiee suit or something.
Yeah,
It looks more like a Wookiee.
that's another one that's him. 1967 gorilla suit. Let's see what Hollywood's got for us.
Okay, yeah.
From the time frame. Okay.
There's one in the top right corner there. That looks
Yeah,
really
here we go. Here's a gorilla suit of the era. You know, I see some similarity with maybe the patterning of the fur,
Yeah, you can definitely tell that's fake as shite.
the mask especially. Here's a good one for us here. You know,
Very, very rubberized.
yep, not a lot. So you can kind of glean now that. Yep. So here, this is what is from a BBC documentary that they put together. They spent like 6 figures on making this suit to replicate the Patterson.
6 figures?
Yeah.
Christ.
And this is what they came up with. Longer hair, the proportions are way off. It's not even close. So you can understand the skepticism that some folks have when the proponents say, wait a minute, this has not been debunked. Here's a professional Hollywood ape outfit. Looks pretty good. So to touch just briefly, see, this is why we can talk about this further. Here's another attempt, a more modern attempt at the suit. Getting a little closer, but look at how pixelated they have to make that. And we can talk into muscle movements, and here they've done some biometric stuff with it, trying to line things up. That's Bob Harmonious on the right.
Yeah, and the cone, the more conical head of the picture on the left
Yep.
versus the more rounded head on the on the right.
More pronounced breasts, and again, it's those forearms that still get me when I look at it.
Yeah, because they're sure aren't drawing a line between elbow and elbow on that one.
Nope.
And the shoulder, like you said, is different, and the thighs are different. And
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to make it perfect, but I mean, this is really
and
close.
As you move photos in and out, you can get those lines to make up. I mean, look at the size of the head on the one on the right compared to it, and they're supposedly the same. So, it's a very interesting subject matter that I kind of follow. And when people say to me, "Well, where's the photos? Where's the videos?" I say, look at the Patterson Gimlin film, because right now that's the best evidence we have. It was filmed on film. Today, in today's society, in today's day and age, anything digital can be manipulated.
That's the problem. It's like we can have they say where the footage is, but
you need to have Polaroids. You need to have film camera,
and they'll still say it's not enough.
Yeah. A photo will never prove it.
Yeah.
You know, you'll need a monkey on a slab. You know, but story for another episode. When you acknowledge that there's potentially an endangered species that can roam the entire United States unchecked, which makes it its habitat.
Oh yeah.
Now you're trying to protect endangered species habitat. What's that do to logging, mining,
Oh yeah.
oil
Definitely.
drilling?
Absolutely.
You know,
Quick end to all that. You know. Yeah, it's very true.
it opens up debates about what makes things human. If these things are somewhere close to us on the family tree, are they human? Should they get social security numbers?
Taxes.
Do they need now to start paying taxes? Do we need to give them
Tax deductible,
welfare?
that's what I say.
We put them on a reservation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Yeah. And now if one of these does happen to kill somebody, then what? Now you've got a wild human population running around. Lot of people that are proponents for the existence of Bigfoot say just leave it alone. They're the best that they're undiscovered because it's the best thing for them. So I've never personally seen or experienced anything like this. I've been more of a armchair researcher.
But you've gone out squatching?
I have been out a few times in the field,
Yeah.
locally as well as out on the West Coast, and never really had anything crazy happen. But have worked with people that would swear on a stack of Bibles as high as you'd want that they have seen one and up close and personal. So that's what gets me interested. I've met too many people that have claimed to have seen one that I trust, that I know well, that I cannot just dismiss it as being fake. I need to do some more of my own investigation into it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times these folks don't even want to talk to me about it because they're afraid of that ridicule.
Oh, yeah.
And all the crap they get from their coworkers and their friends about, oh, here's the guy that saw the Sasquatch. So when I approach people that I've heard have had experiences, it usually takes a little coaxing to get them to tell their story even to me. And I said, look, I like to hear the story, and I welcome them to a club of a very elite few people on the planet that have actually had an opportunity to see one of these things.
Very true.
So,
Just like you said in the previous episode with the Thunderbird, that guy, he was 9.
yeah.
And then he was ridiculed
He was
his
getting
whole
beat up
life.
at school.
Yeah.
He was getting beat up at school afterwards. If crank calls his whole life, he wanted to move.
And I think it's probably because, you start shaking that foundation which we built for ourselves. I know this to be true. I know this to be fact. And when you bring in other information that might shake that foundation, might topple your whole understanding of reality, people fight that, I mean, that's the reason I'm a skeptic is kind of that, I don't have that foundation. I'm scared, but I want it to be wrecked. I'm like, this is the way it is. Well, there's an alien ship lands. Well, my foundation's fucked.
Yeah, right.
But I'm kind of happy with it because I don't mind that. But other
swamp
people,
gases.
swamp gas,
As always.
Yeah, as always, it's swamp gas.
But I mean, some people don't like that. They don't want their reality shaken in the least little bit.
Yep.
And I always consider them to have the blinders on because they're never going to open up their viewpoint and look at the world as a larger, a bigger place. They're really dedicated to X, Y, and Z. And there's nothing around it. And that's, if you ask me, it's kind of sad because people are really
like
happy
the
with that.
pasture,
Yeah,
man.
and
They
I
don't want to
actually
see
feel
what's
bad.
on the other side of the hill.
Poor bastards, man. I tell you what, it's cool out there. You start looking around and you're like, woo.
And with a lot of this stuff, you just end up with way more questions than answers,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's really what interests me about it. Is it's really a nonstop loop. Is with a lot of the stuff we discuss, you're never going to get hard answers unless a UFO ship comes down and starts dropping Bigfoot bodies and then drills down to underground military bases. We're never really going to have in our lifetime solid proof on the majority of the stuff that we're discussing. But it
Very
sure
true.
is fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Just be mindful, be aware, and always question authority, right?
Yeah, question everything.
All right, well that's what I had on Sasquatch for the evening. More to
All right.
come on that.
Yeah, actually, mine don't even need the computer for this one.
Oh, nice.
I wanted to cover 9/11, but I've been sitting with it for a while, and I don't know exactly what to do and all that shit. Try to get people, but do you guys both feel like there's definitely a cover up about it?
I believe there's a cover
Yeah.
up.
Oh, absolutely. There's something
Yeah.
fishy going on with 9/11.
So, what I thought I would do, there was a great columnist here that wrote an article.
I just forgot a topic I wanted to talk about today, but all right,
But
I'll wait till next time.
The biggest hard-hitting thing about 9/11, I think, is Building 7.
Oh yeah.
Do we agree
the
on
one that was a few blocks away or
Yeah.
whatever that just
wasn't hit by a
mysterious-
plane, but it's
And
what
just
was it 22
collapsed.
stories, I think.
Yeah, that's
Some small, yeah.
somehow collapsed.
Yeah.
Yep. Free fall speeds. Same day. That later that day, like 5 p.m.
Down it went. Nobody hears about that, do they?
No, absolutely not. And then, okay, this guy is pretty good. Here's this article. It says, look for more truths into 9/11 attacks. You might know him. By Dan Hohlfeld.
That was in the paper.
I wrote
so
this
awesome.
article a while ago, and I was younger, and I was really pissed off. This is July 21st, 2011. This got printed, so I just thought I'd just read the article for you guys. It says, many questions remain after the attacks of September 11th, 2001. One of which people don't realize is that 3 buildings went down in New York City that day, not 2. Yes, the towers number 1 and 2 were hit by a plane. The building no one talks about is Building 7. This building was not hit by a plane, yet it collapsed at free fall speeds that day. The fact that all these buildings fell at free fall speed should raise a red flag to anybody. When you look into Building 7, there was a news piece that done that day by BBC with Jane Stanley reporting that the building collapsed 20 minutes before it collapsed.
It actually collapsed. Yeah,
Yeah.
funny, huh?
That is huge. In fact, you can see the building standing in the very background that she is reporting at.
Yeah, I remember seeing that video.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, jeepers.
The Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline.
There was an interview where the owner of the complex, Larry Silverstein, says maybe the smartest thing to do is just pull it, and they made a decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. Why is this so significant? It takes weeks to set up demolition of a building. How could they have done it in 9/11 in just a few hours?
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
All I ask is people do a little research. There's many architects and engineers who seek out the truth, and just take some time to look at it for yourself.
Yeah.
And when I printed it, they have to keep within a number, certain amount of words.
Words, oh, sure, yeah.
So the stuff in yellow I highlighted that they took out.
Oh, yeah.
And they basically, the main thing they took out was, I said, this means you could take a billiard ball and drop it from the top of each tower of the collapse, and it would be the same exact speed without the resistance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is odd, because you'd think that structure to be designed to hold up, and you'd see a slow crumble from the top down or whatever, versus just because it fell from the bottom. It just
there's no resistance.
Yeah, no, it was
And
like
even
any other demolition video you've ever seen on YouTube. Looked exactly.
And
the
if
same.
anything, if it hit the building, maybe you get the top to fall off the top.
Yeah,
No,
it
it
gets
just comes
swinging.
straight
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
Because if you weaken a structure on the side, it's going to go towards the weakened side. That's how I don't know how many people cut their own lumber, but you weaken one side of the tree,
And it's
then you
gonna
start
fall
cutting
that
it,
way,
and it
yeah.
falls that way. So
Yeah.
these are weakened on one side, and then they fall all the way down too. And what this really gets me too is the Building 7, but on top of that is I've done a little bit of research into this myself, is there's skyscrapers around the world that have caught fire and burned for 19, 22 hours and are still upright,
Yep.
having a great time, nothing going on. They kept on saying jet fuel, which is just kerosene, and they're like, oh, it burns at, 1 billion degrees. Well, if you do a little research, it does not burn at that type of...
Not
yeah.
hot enough to melt all that stuff as quick as it did.
Even if it did melt, you would have the structure is weakened on the side and from the top. It's not weakened down here.
Yeah.
I mean, even if this was all just fell down, you would still have this rigid structure that was already holding it up in the first place.
Holding less material up as it shed and fell around it.
yeah.
Yep.
But
And
there's
then you got reports of molten lava, like
At the
melted metal there, liquid metal.
Yeah, that cooked and simmered for weeks
Yeah.
under the ground and stuff. Well, another interesting tidbit about this too is you look at the people who didn't show up to work that day at the towers
yeah.
as well. There's a whole list of prominent people that for some reason
weren't there today.
weren't there that day.
Then Jed Bush, that was his last day, or the day before was his last day.
I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Was it one of Bush's brothers or cousins that run security for that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh,
no.
awesome!
And then,
Great to hear.
well, I had a few haters on that too. It was like,
Oh, I'm betting.
I remember there was no facts. They just called me crazy.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. yeah. Because it can be. Government's good. They tell us the truth. They've never done anything like that.
That's why we have a show.
Yeah.
They don't give us enough information for us.
How did
to
you
do
hear
it.
of haters? Where did that come from?
It's on the Tribune comment section.
Oh, they have that.
Is it
I don't know
still
if
up
it's
there?
still up there.
Oh, I was gonna
I'll
say.
look for this because I got to put it up on screen. But
Oh sure. Yeah. Awesome.
yeah, then
If you can still make comments, let me know. I'll dive in there a little bit.
Then the 28th, I actually had a guy respond to me, Chip DeNewer. He's he's wants asked questions too about it. Following up on Dan Hohlfeld's very reasonable letter asking people to investigate the collapse of Building 7. Let me add that the skyscraper was 47 stories. Okay, so 47.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And collapsed at free fall speeds into its own footprint late in the afternoon of September 11th. This building was not hit by a plane. The 9/11 Commission was so thorough in its investigation that it did not even mention Building 7 in its report.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, that wasn't on TV.
Well, yeah. Well,
It wasn't,
Well,
then they
it's-
kind of
it-
didn't talk about it
yeah.
anymore.
hushed up and being
Yeah.
quiet.
Many years later, the government concluded fire brought it down. Only a fool would believe that. Check out the video of collapse on the internet of Building 7. It's the Rosetta Stone in figuring out what really happened that day, and I really do believe that.
Because that's the information they wanted destroyed or whatever infrastructure was in there. That's what they wanted to get rid of, and they used the towers as a decoy. I mean,
They wanted to actually get rid of all of it because there was asbestos.
That's what I hear too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it costed a lot of money to fix that.
No, you
Yeah.
think 9/11 was fucking done because of an asbestos
Well,
cleanup?
part of
Well,
it.
it helped with it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Asbestos
Remember they tried to
and
do
stuff
this in
the war.
93 before,
Oh, bomb out front or something, right?
down below in the parking
Yeah,
lot.
that's
garage.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that now. Does J.P. Morgan own those buildings?
That was Larry Silverstein.
Who's in bed with the big banks of?
He made
or
some
whatever,
money off
yeah.
of it. He
Oh, yeah.
profited
Oh,
off
sure.
it.
It's a funny thing because all the scrap got sent over to China to be melted down. You know, supposedly they didn't let anyone check it out. The Pentagon's I never talked about very often either, but they had video footage of the plane hitting the Pentagon, and it blacked out. There was a camera.
It looked more like a missile than a plane.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. Where's the wings? You know, because there's a hole. It was it.
But the thing is, all that stuff is debatable, but Building 7 really is
Yeah.
the smoking gun. It's
Yeah,
like,
because they had a bunch of information in towers 1 and 2
Yeah.
that they got rid of that. But oh crap, there's this bit over here in Building 7, and it wasn't information. It was insurance fraud again. We did an episode before about the Titanic insurance fraud. Is this just a bigger version of that?
there was something that they were trying to cover up, and it happens to get burned in there, so.
Yeah, you go down that rabbit hole pretty deep.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Egypt's
that.
involvement and
Oh yeah, and then you got we went to war in Afghanistan for it. Well, Afghanistan is one of the biggest opiate and poppies, so you have pharmaceuticals getting.
Well, yeah, and not to get too far off topic, but now, of course, America's got this big heroin epidemic. Oh, geez, where have we been the last freaking 15, 20 years? Is in the middle of the opium fields, poppy fields.
Really true. So you got a question, you can do that yarn on the wall thing and start
Yeah.
connecting everything together.
What
and
always,
it's kinda, it
what
gets a
always
little
blew my
convoluted.
mind about 9/11 is we went and attacked Saddam Hussein in Iraq, yet the vast majority of hijackers were Egyptian. And it's come, since then, it's kind of come to light that Egypt knew about it and stood to profit off it as well. And yet we went after Saddam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who fucking knows,
Yeah,
man?
yeah.
Well, there's a whistleblower that sends me that email. I mean,
Yeah.
the show
Well,
will
we
take off.
need to do an episode about Ed Snowden someday because,
yeah.
more and more stuff he's leaked has been shown to be true, yet
Yeah, see, I
everybody
haven't heard much
says
about him lately.
Yeah.
we still try not to end up in a federal clink somewhere that they throw away the key.
Yeah.
If they
And
get
you
their
really
hands on him,
shouldn't.
he'll just disappear.
That whistleblowing should be just, you should get applauded for it.
Right.
If you
Well, it's
find,
national security.
well,
Yeah.
shit. Well, maybe this nation
Because
should be hiding
against-
secrets against their own the
The
people that
government's
elect them in
afraid
office.
that we're going to revolt if they hear about
Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
secrets
if we
they
knew
have.
everything
I
they
wish
were
you would
doing.
have just emailed me the shit instead of news people like the Guardian and whatnot. Even though I get a lot of my news from the Guardian, I would have sent it to like everybody in the United States. Here you go.
Yep.
You know.
Can you do that? www.everyoneintheunitedstates.com.
Oh, that'd be pretty
Everybody
badass.
in the United States.com at
At Yahoo, Gmail,
Yeah.
everything.com.
There should be a spam filter for that. I don't know. I think that'd be out there.
Yeah.
yeah, you'd think.
I wouldn't mind. I'd be reading the shit. So, can I have the keyboard? please?
Yeah, it's all
Oh, yeah,
yours.
absolutely.
Yeah, because we can go on about World Trade Center 7 and everything else for.
And we're looking at
days.
monkey suits on the computer screen.
Dumb
Thank you. Yes.
monkeys.
Yeah. Go ahead and close those out. There we go.
All right, so I'm going to cover kind of like the forbidden archaeology. I like the forbidden archaeology quite a bit.
That's good stuff. I enjoy
Yeah,
that
the
too.
cryptozoology. I like that because it usually kind of coincides a little bit. Being that we're filming here in Wisconsin, I thought, well, you know what? I will cover these giants that are found in Wisconsin. So these lost race of giants were found in burial grounds near Lake Delwyn, Wisconsin.
Delavan, yeah.
Yeah, Delavan,
Okay.
Wisconsin. This isn't the first time, actually, I've heard of these things, too. There's above Madison. These were all found, and you can read this article. Where the hell am I in the article? So you got the story behind the story, forbidden archaeology, giant mystery, 18 strange giant skeletons found in Wisconsin, sons of God, men of renown, this and that. So it kind of goes into story, talks about some very tall people that have been photographed. You know, we had, I think the tallest person alive is in Russia right now. And
Okay.
he's, I don't know, like 9-10 feet tall or some
Damn.
shit. He's a big guy.
You know, you start talking about the sons of God, you know, and stuff, and they're talking about the half alien, or not half alien, half angel and half human hybrids and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
That supposedly, you know, when the angels came down and the evil angels came down, they started breeding with humans and
Yep.
created giants like
Yeah,
this.
you
So
hit-
it ties in with a lot of some of the biblical stuff as well, which makes it even
It really
even
is.
weirder.
Yeah, because you have the Nephilim and all these other things that
Yeah.
people talk about too, and
Not so much in the Bible, but yeah.
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
just another story that's been passed down or
Of
talked
giants.
about, of giants. Now, what I get about this, because we are local, it's in Wisconsin and whatnot, but I read this, and the Smithsonian actually got involved. I don't know if this is the same article, but the Smithsonian comes up, and they, yeah, right here. Times reported that the scientists from the Smithsonian Institution had discovered several large pyramid monuments on Lake Mills near Madison,
Yeah.
Wisconsin. And blah, blah, blah. Teeming population numbering not less than 200,000. So you have now pyramids, you have giants. Smithsonian comes in, and I think this might be the one. There's another a large burial mound discovered near Maple Creek, Wisconsin, had recently been opened. So you have all these crazy things going on.
The skull was as large as a half bushel measure.
I don't know what the hell that is.
Well, a bushel basket, you know,
Oh.
half a bushel,
Half a bushel.
which is a huge head.
I mean, it really is. And this is the cover up is here. They're not in public display.
No.
And matter of fact, from another article I read, and I don't know, I don't think it's the same one, but this morning it comes up, says, "Hey guys, glad you found it. That's awesome. We're gonna take these back to the DC, and we're gonna do our study and check this shit out, and then we'll get back to you."
Yeah.
And then it goes to DC, and they're like, "What giants?" I don't
Yeah,
know the fuck
what are
you're
you talking
Yeah.
about? You know, a lot of these ancient remains being found now are getting turned over to the First Nations people under some act. I can't remember what year it was. An act was passed where when you came across Indian burial mounds and stuff, you turned them over to the Native American tribes
yeah.
that they allegedly belonged to. And I had just recently read that they found another yet even older human fossil in America. And they're trying not to turn it over to the First Nations people because they said it is not their tribe, it predates their tribe. So even if you go in your backyard, dig up a giant skeleton 10 foot tall, somebody's going to come along and say, "Oh no, you need to hand that over to the First Nations." And then who knows what the hell they've got going on with the government, you know, to bury this. Maybe they take them and they rebury them and no one can look at them. Who knows? I'm not involved with that. But we can't just keep weird remains that we find. We turn it over to the government and then they might turn it over to the Native Americans or...
They hide it. You know,
Yeah.
and this is just in Wisconsin. I've been reading about these giants being found everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
China,
Yeah.
Indonesia.
So this happens
you
over
know.
and over. They just turn these bones over. Is this?
Well, they get found, and then they there's this big.
Some are so fragile they can't excavate them. Those are the kind that are found around Richland Center, Wisconsin. When you look into that, they attempted to remove them, but they would crumble. So, but yeah, in other instances, yeah, they get turned over. In other instances, like if you find something like this in Iraq or in the Middle East, that government's going to come in and take it. And there's a whole slew of conspiracies revolving around ancient artifacts and findings that just get quelled by the government.
Yeah.
We, as Americans, or as just a global population, cannot climb to the top of Mount Ararat where Noah's Ark supposedly had come to rest. It is completely cordoned off military. They don't let any people, I think some every now and then they let groups of scientists in there, but they have it fenced off. We cannot go to the site in the biblical sense where Noah's Ark came to rest. Why is that?
Yeah.
What is so special about that mountaintop?
You know, and the thing of it is, it goes two ways. Either it's there, or it ain't there.
Yep.
I mean, there you go. Giants are unexplained. You know, you'd have to rewrite history. You'd have to relook at your religions that are popular. Same with aliens. I mean, even if the mothership were to land, they don't believe in the religions that we have. Then, well, shit. Things aren't as what we think they are. Type things.
No, they've established the religions we've had for us to follow.
Maybe, but that's what it is. These people are so scared that we're going to find these things. Giants, we don't have any way to really explain giants.
Yep.
Especially a race of them. I've been reading about different races. They had, like I told you in the other episode we had red-haired, fair-skinned Indians in the Southwest. Yep. Completely unheard of.
From
We had
Lovelock Cave or whatever, where they found
yeah,
it.
something like that, right? They talked about Vikings that were coming down, got lost here, and maybe they,
started breeding.
Yeah, because they were stuck.
Because every other primates that have ever come across each other have interbred. They've shown that with Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, and we didn't destroy Neanderthals. We didn't attack them and kill them all. We just bred them into our DNA. Yeah. We could reproduce faster. We lived longer, so we just eventually just absorbed them.
Yeah.
1 to 4% of...
That's a fact?
Yes, 1 to 4% of the DNA that we have in us right now is Neanderthal.
Huh.
Yes, and there's some
So
areas...
who had sex with a Neanderthal?
Well, Homo sapiens, who has sex with
aliens,
dogs?
And then aliens had sex with us, and then we have
people
alien
are banging all
Neanderthals.
sorts of different types of animals and people-like things, anyway, so not to digress.
Yeah, every time we talk about sex, we always go way...
Yeah, I know, yeah. So anyway, there's an excellent show that PBS runs about this origins and stuff, talks about it. There's some certain genetical groups in South Africa that don't share any Neanderthal DNA, but we all do. And we just bred them out.
And it's really funny because I was watching Science Channel. They were talking about the amount of DNA and all this other stuff. Like, we have a lot of DNA that has nothing to really do with who we are and what we do.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of information that we don't even know what the fuck it does. It's kind of just sitting there jumbled up. There's places in the world, like you said, we can't go to. China has a great mountain you can't go to. It has actual metal rods going down through the mountain, and it's crazy shit.
The pipes, right?
Yeah, the pipes, they come down through the mountain, go into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go on for this shit for days. But this is really local. I guess you can still go down to the sites, and you're not going to see anything, I guess. But, it's still be kind of cool.
Is there pyramids there?
See, I haven't really done much research into that. It's just more the giants, and then how everybody keeps on, oh, we found giants. Oh, we don't know where the hell they are.
So how close is that to the... We're going to go Comic-Con, or is it...
Oh, we're going to GeekCon. That's in Madison, so we could always...
swing by there?
We could probably swing by there.
Yeah, it's just east. I've been to Esalen Park, and they've got the you can see where the old forts used to be, and they just disappeared. They were wiped out. There was a tribe living there, a group of people living there just disappeared, wiped out, no record, no nothing. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Aliens took them away.
That's one of the theories.
Yeah, fuck it.
We
need slave labor.
If you can't blame Canada, blame the aliens, man.
I like Canada. I love gravy and potatoes. So
that's Canadian gravy.
Gravy and fries.
Oh, and fries, yeah. That's British, isn't it?
No, that's
French
fish
fries.
and chips. Yeah, French fries and gravy up in Canada.
French fries from a French.
No. French toast is from Polish.
Now we're confused.
This show just went straight there.
What the hell are we talking about again? Giants.
Giants.
Yeah, there we go, yeah.
Well, it's covered up, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. So, check it out.
So we'll find out for ourselves.
Yeah, maybe we should go down there and look.
We'll do a report.
All right, hey. Reminder, do not forget to check out Social Fix, man. Program rocks. Check it out. Like, comment, share, tweet, Twitter, subscribe, all that stuff. Subscribe. We're going to be here for a while. It's only going to get better. And we love to have you here on Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk and talk is cheap. Have a good one.
Then, of course... Why is she so mad? I started talking about something
I figured we cut that in.
Belle did not like. Oh, she's mad. What's wrong, Belle? All right, I'm going to just change the subject. Apparently, I've upset Belle.
Yeah.
I'm
she
probably should
thinks
start
you're-
ramping up anyway.
Oh, she's mad. Someone on the stairs?
I don't know.
Government
Go.
probably has a
As
drone
always.
outside
She
the
can-
fucking
yeah,
window.
she can hear the
looking at
drones.
us, Yeah.
Their blocker to fuck my computer up must be not working.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now,
so now they're tapping on the windows, getting the dog to keep
I don't
us
even
from
want to go.
talking.
I'm looking out the window right now. I'm kind of getting nervous, you know.